Hi, so we're here with Erlend Bakke. I'm going to use the Americanized version there.
Absolutely.
And yeah, here to talk about your book, which you just released,
Uh-huh.
and also just a little bit about how to start an online business, some tips for that, and also outsourcing, which you are Mr. Outsource, so that's probably a good topic to talk about. So yeah, Erlend, we met kind of a few years back in San Francisco, and back then you were mostly working on 360. Is that right?
Yeah, Uspin, the
Oh,
the
you
the
spin.
Us
That's right.
Uspin app. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So maybe it's worth doing just a quick bio. Like, what's your background? What are some of the companies that you're running, and how did you come up with Never Work Again? And what
hmm
was that kind of journey? I guess.
Okay, well, my journey started out when I got fired. I got fired from my first job. I was working as a brand consultant in London. It was kind of my dream job, and ever since I was 14, I've always wanted to make my own money. So when I was 14, I got a job in a local store, basically stacking the shelves. And working and making money for me was kind of liberating, and it gave me this good feeling. So basically, I think already at the age of 14, I deep down knew that I should be an entrepreneur. But I came from a traditional family where you go out and you go to university, get a job, get married, have kids, retire, and then die. And I wasn't really introduced to the philosophy of entrepreneurship. And I think these days kids are a lot more aware of it, especially in the US. The US has a much stronger background in entrepreneurship, especially in the Valley. You're in the Valley right now, right?
Yeah. Well, I split my time. I'm in Canada right now, but yeah, I go down to the
Right.
valley quite a bit. Hmm.
Yeah. So basically, in California, you have a lot of entrepreneurial parents, and they will be showing and teaching and explaining things to kids from a very young age. I didn't have that. So I basically went through and did my university degrees, and my one of my best friends asked me early on at university. He was like, "Oh, so what are you going to do when you finish?" And I said, "Oh, I'm going to start my own company." But it seems the next 5 years, I kind of forgot about that. So I ended up in a traditional job, and luckily, I was fired from that job. And then I find that a lot of these things that happen to you that first seem negative are actually the greatest gifts in the world.
Yeah.
So the challenges and the resistance and the failure are your gifts they're gifts from God so that you can actually grow as a person. And I didn't see it like that at the time, and I was angry with my boss for a very long time.
Yeah.
I actually had lunch with him a couple of weeks ago, and I was able to, give him my book and say thank you for firing me because you set my life in a new direction. At the point where I decided to become an entrepreneur, I actually knew my life would be an adventure, and I knew it wasn't going to be easy. I knew there were going to be challenges, not that many challenges,
Hmm.
but my life has been an adventure. And today I'm signing in from New York, me and my girlfriend, we just moved here from London, and I'm not sure where we're going to move next, but we might move to the Philippines and try living there for 1 year,
Yeah.
where one of my businesses is. So yeah, I got fired. Had to really do some soul searching, and what I did was that I actually phoned up people that had known me for a long time, and that could really tell me truthfully what they think I should do.
Hmm.
And one of those people was an entrepreneur, and I've always been attracted to talking to him because he was an entrepreneur, and I kind of knew deep down that I was meant to be an entrepreneur also.
Right.
So I started my first company in London. We grew it up to like 12 staff the first year. But we didn't know anything about business, and we were losing lots and lots of money. So I actually decided to give back my shares to the co-founder and start the same company in Norway. So the companies I have now is a photography business in Norway, where we have 4 photographers that photograph products for clients
Hmm.
in 360. And because there's so much image editing in 360 photography, we actually, I'm just going to find the app here so I can show you. Because there's so much image editing in 360 photography, I had to find a solution because I was editing images all the time. So I
Hmm.
had Red Bull in one hand, my trusted mouse in the other, and I was just in so much pain. My both of my arms kind of stopped working, and I had
Yeah.
RSI, and I just had to find a solution to that. And the solution for me was outsourcing to the Philippines, and I managed to find an excellent person there, who's now my business partner. And we've built up a company that offers image editing for photographers.
Right.
And a lot of the stuff that I do has been very organic. So a lot of people want like the formula for success, and I usually
Yeah.
say that is modeling.
Yeah.
So basically, if you know you want to start a restaurant, go work at McDonald's and learn and understand how that business is built. I'm
Hmm.
not say stay there for years. I'm just saying like figure out their business model. What is it that they've spent the past 40 years perfecting? So here's the app. Basically, there's a Christmas pig. This is one I made during Christmas. But
Okay.
basically, you can photograph anything in 360, and you can rotate it and see it from all sides, and that increases sales and decreases returns, basically.
Right. Right.
So the next company I started was the next thing we started doing was software. So Uspin is a software that we've got 350,000 downloads. We have a professional software for photographers. So that's kind of the photo business stuff. And then about 1 year ago, I've always wanted to write a book. It's been on my vision board for a long time, and I had this. It's kind of weird, like when you don't know how you're going to do something, it's really difficult to write stuff down. And
Yeah.
what I encourage you to do is like, if you have a vision board, is just try not to let your brain get in the way of what you actually want to do in your life. Just write stuff down. So I wrote down I want to have an international best-selling book, and Never Work Again is now an international best-selling book. And
Awesome.
how that came together was kind of listening to my heart, following my intuition, and sort of letting go of a lot of the egocentric notions that I had early on in my entrepreneurial career.
Yeah.
It's the weird thing is like the more I let go of stuff, the more success I have.
Yeah. What are some of those egocentric things? Because I find myself in that same position now, right?
Yeah, yeah. So for me, it was very much dominated in sort of greed
Hmm.
and recognition. So
Right.
I wanted money so that people would recognize me. So that I would be like one of the celebrity entrepreneurs. That was
Yeah.
important to me. And now I just want to create good stuff.
Yeah.
Now I just want to kind of live life on my terms and have time to exercise, eat healthily, and work on projects that I enjoy. I honestly now do not care about money. And people might say, oh yeah, that's because you're actually making quite a bit of money these days. And it's really not. Like I really don't care that much anymore. And I've sold most of the things that I owned before that were important to me.
Yeah.
And so yeah, basically it was greed. So greed. So because I thought money would buy me recognition and would
Right.
make me feel better about who about my success and stuff like that. But that's not the case. So anymore. But it's been a long process of sort of growing out of that. But I think that's a trained mindset. I think a lot of media. I think most media is telling us the dream, is telling us to be a certain way. You
Yeah.
have so many intelligent people out there that are customizing and designing ads and communications to program us, and there's billions and billions of dollars out there being spent on programming you to think a certain way.
Yeah.
And the first step, I believe, in entrepreneurship is like getting the right mindset.
Right.
And in self-development, that's talked about a lot, and it's like a lot of people find it wishy-washy. But for me, it's the core part of enjoying the entrepreneurial journey, because it is difficult, it is tough. There isn't an easy path in life,
Yeah.
in this kind of life. So
Yeah. That's a good kind of segue because the whole first part of your book deals almost with psychology, right? And
yeah,
I kind of like what you're talking about. You quote Tony Robbins, and I'm a big Tony Robbins fan as well.
mm,
And he talks a lot about how change happens in an instant. It always happens in an instant. It's the build up to that
Mm.
change that takes a long time. So maybe walk through, like, you had an experience that kind of
Yeah.
changed your way of thinking in that instant, and really put you on a path to taking better care of yourself and putting a lot of the business stuff on more of an autopilot and
Yeah.
designing the lifestyle that you want to
Mm.
lead. Can you
Yeah.
just talk about that experience and what that kind of led you to?
Okay, so again, I kind of thought that as an entrepreneur, you should be working 18-hour days, you should be drinking Red Bull, eating ramen noodles, and sleeping underneath your desk.
Mm-hmm.
And early days for me was like I cut out a lot of my social contacts. It was all about work. I had this constant feeling that I always needed to do something,
Yeah.
which created problems with sleeping, problems with relaxation. So it was a gradual build-up over a couple of years that led to me. Well, I basically I was at a conference in London. I started feeling very strange. You know, when you start getting ill, you
Mm-hmm.
have this feeling. You know you're getting ill. You just like you're not really willing to recognize it. So I was starting. I was sort of starting to feel weird, and I'd never felt like this before. So I went outside. I lay down on the grass, and I put on some like quiet like music and just tried to get back and try to relax and all that. But the thing with panic attacks is they actually come when you're relaxing,
Oh, really?
which
No
is the
way.
weird thing, like because it's an outlet for your body of all the stress that it's accumulated.
Uh-huh.
It's like in yoga and different types of Eastern healing. There's a lot of techniques you can do. Like primal scream is one way of letting go of
Mm-hmm.
stress, right?
Yeah.
So this is one mechanism for the body to so it doesn't explode. So I lay down on the grass. I was like, okay, this is not good. My heart was racing, and I went on the tube, and it was rush hour, and my hands started getting blue, and I was feeling faint, and my heart was like 220 beats a minute,
Yeah.
and I thought I was having a heart attack, and the world started spinning, and I just had to grab onto the person next to me and said like, I'm having a heart attack, get me out of here.
Yeah.
And we got to the hospital, and it was a panic attack. I thought I was, and the thing with panic attacks is that it's the exact same feeling as if you are dying.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like, okay, this is it. And, I was kind of texting my passwords and stuff to my girlfriend as soon as I could, because somebody had to pay my stuff. Somebody had to like take care of everything
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
something happened to me. And also like who should get what, like who should have my companies, who should have my money and all that. And it was a very strange experience, and part of that experience was like a lot of the things that I thought was very important to me were no longer important at all.
Mm-hmm.
And now I actually have a skull on my desk. I haven't bought a skull here in New York, but when I work in Norway, I have a skull on my desk as a memento mori. A memento mori is basically something that there was a big general in Rome, and one of his servants said to him after a great victory that memento mori, tomorrow's another day, we're all going to die, enjoy your success, but it's about every day, it's not about the big successes.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a memento mori on my desk, and every day I think about how our life is short, how our life is precious, and we live in this kind of world of control where we think we can control our circumstances,
Mm-hmm.
but we really can't. The only thing you can really control is how you think and how you react to things.
Right.
And so I have a memento mori on my desk from that episode. And what I changed after that was, one thing was that I changed my number. I have something called a freedom number, which is basically how much money I want to make to be happy.
Yeah.
And I changed that number from being multi millions to being like, I need to make a certain amount of money a month to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
And for me now, like, time is much more important than money. Time is
Right.
much more important. So that's part of my psychology as an entrepreneur is like, oh, who can I get to do this for me, is something I'm asking myself all the time. So I rarely trade my time for money.
Yeah.
If it's a task that I really don't want to do, it's really difficult for me to trade my time for money. Like you have to either pay me a lot, or I have to really want to do it.
Yeah.
I think that's like the two criteria. So yeah, I had already built up a couple of businesses. They were working, but my philosophy around it was wrong. And then I did, I've read the 4 Hour Work Week, and I sort of systemized and automated and licensed out stuff, and then I had the freedom to sort of travel the world and live the 4 Hour Work Week.
Yeah.
And I was making the kind of money I wanted to make. I was seeing the kind of places I wanted to see. And I have these videos on YouTube called my bucket list videos, and every time I uh, do something cool on my bucket list, I film it and I put it out there, and I have a little message in the beginning.
Hmm.
But I document my bucket list because first of all, it's fun to do, and it's actually become part of my Mr. Outsource's marketing as well.
Oh, really?
It's because if you do a business trip and there's something business related on the trip. Now, let's say you do a trip and there's something business related on the trip,
Yeah.
like filming a bucket list video. Your company can pay for it.
Right.
So I'm actually saving about 50% on doing the bucket list video itself, and
Yeah.
it's fun, and it's incorporated in my marketing, and I enjoy doing it. And
Yeah.
hopefully it adds a lot of value to other people and encourages them to cross off things on their bucket list as well.
Yeah. Nice.
So full circle, I basically traveled for a few years, did a lot of bucket list things, saw the world, relaxed, read a whole bunch of books, and I was sitting in LA, actually Malibu Beach, at a restaurant called Jeffrey's, and it was very fancy. I bought a Porsche, and it was standing outside, and
Yeah.
it was lots of celebrities there, and I was like doing this kind of stuff, and I was sitting there, and it was a beautiful sunset, and I didn't have anybody to share it with, because
Hmm.
all my friends were doing other things or doing stuff that they wanted to do, and I was there alone enjoying my freedom. And I figured out, like, this isn't what I really want. This isn't really like what I thought I wanted as freedom. Uh, isn't what freedom really is, or what I wanted.
Right.
So a lot of people work all their life, and then they retire, and then they go, "Oh, I'm retired now," and they hate their life. They're
Yeah.
bored.
Yeah.
And I've spoken to so many people that are retired, and they're so bored. My dad, he's a consultant in the oil industry, and for 3 months now, he didn't have work,
Yeah.
and he was so bored and frustrated. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
So it's like people wait all their life to have this freedom, and only to realize that it wasn't what they wanted. So in the book, I write about how the conclusion of the book is like, freedom is doing what you love.
Hmm.
It's in the doing of what you love doing, and having the guts to do it, having the connection to your soul to do what you're meant to do in life. And I feel part of this is this message of my near death experience, and then sharing the message on freedom.
Hmm.
And so for me, this is like effortless doing. And Never Work Again is actually a book about, yeah, it's about automation and outsourcing and techniques and stuff like that. But it's more about really understanding that you do those things to be able to focus on what you love doing.
Yeah.
So figure out what you love, and then do it. Have the guts to do it, and then because you have the guts to do it, you will naturally grow. And to for us to grow to our potential in life and add a lot of value, I believe that is the most that is the best feeling anybody can have, is the feeling of contribution.
Right.
And one of the exercises in the book is from Mind Valley. And Vishen Lakhani
Hmm.
actually says that the 3 most important questions exercise covers all of the human needs. And it's like all we want in life is experiences, growth, and contribution.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really, really powerful exercise. And there's actually an iPhone app that you can download. I listen to it maybe a couple of times a week,
Hmm.
because I do need to train my brain and retrain my brain to think about these things. So if I don't think about them, then other people in society will be programming me to think that, oh, this is what I want, or this is what I
Right.
want.
Right. Yeah.
So that's kind of my journey, and that's also why I wrote the book. I wrote the book because I felt that I had gone through so much pain and suffering because I was pursuing things that I thought I wanted, but when I had them, and they just felt empty and unnecessary.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
every day now I get up, and yeah, sometimes like Friday I think I'm taking half the day off, and that my travels over the next couple of months, I'll tell you about them. I'm staying here till the end of the month. Then I'm spending 1.5 weeks in Cyprus. Then I go back to Norway. I'm going back to New York. Then I'm going to fly to Russia, Germany, back to Norway, to New York. Then I'm going to Japan, Philippines, Singapore, and then back to New York.
Wow.
And so I
It's
do,
busy.
yeah, and I do it. But it's actually interesting. Again, um, it's like paradox, right? It's like once you have too much of something, you want something else.
Yeah.
So I'm actually at a phase now where I'm like, I
Too much
don't want to
travel.
travel. Yeah, I don't want to
Yeah.
travel that much.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I've done that now, and working out of hotel rooms and all this stuff is like it's okay, but I'm happier now. Like spending time with cool people and working on projects that excite me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for me, that's kind of a big step. So it's been a good journey, but I guess the reason why I wrote the book is because I want to shortcut people's way to living a freedom lifestyle, which isn't actually not doing anything. It's just doing what you want to do and having the guts to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the exercises that you did, and it's sitting on I have a giant whiteboard in my basement here.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it was I think you had three categories. It was kind of like, what can't you do, what you do but shouldn't do,
Yeah.
and what was the last one?
Think like a CEO.
Yeah, yeah. That
Mm.
that exercise, right? But
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
listed all the things that I was doing on a day to day basis,
Yeah.
and and then I made a separate list of what I wanted to do. What I had
Yeah.
a passion for, and they
Mm.
were they were totally different.
Yeah.
And I just thought that is kind of interesting. Like, shouldn't the goal of my life be to replace this list of crap that I am doing but shouldn't be doing with the
Yeah.
stuff that I love doing?
Yeah.
And yeah,
That's a core part of the book. Is like you started off as an entrepreneur not to do accounting. I mean, if
yeah,
you want to
yeah,
do accounting, you do accounting, and also like writing contracts and and all these tasks. Like you had a vision for entrepreneurship when you started, and then when you get going, you realize, oh, I've got like 18 different hats here
yeah. That's
that
right.
you're responsible for, and you're trying to coordinate all this stuff. And um, that's why I say, if you want to start a business, then find a business similar to it. Then one thing you can do is go work for that company and
Mhm.
figure everything out, how they do stuff. Another way to do it is just look at how they do everything. Buy their product, test their product, phone the company, try their customer service. Like take it's called reverse engineering.
Mhm.
So I studied
Right.
product design in Edinburgh, and one of the things we learned there was like if you want to build let's say I wanted to build this helicopter, right?
Mhm.
What I would do is I would find the exact product that I want to build, and then I would take it all apart and I would lay it out on the table,
Yeah.
and I would number them and figure out, okay, this is made through vacuum forming, and this is injection molding. Yeah.
Mhm.
So from that, I could really shortcut my way to building a helicopter company, whatever. And this is what the Chinese do all the time with American
Yeah.
products. Like Americans will launch the products, and I'm sure American companies do it with Chinese products as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's going in that direction. So I think there were more patents filed in China than the U.S. like last year or something. So yes, that's kind of interesting trend. Huh? So yeah, that is one exercise that I think is important, and another thing is like I used to think that, oh, I do this exercise once, and then I'm finished, but it's actually more like you have to consistently refine doing the exercises. So you do the
Right.
exercise once a month or something, because you're always going to need to, like Stephen Covey. I'm a big fan of Stephen Covey, and he says sharpen the saw. And
Mhm.
this is one thing that, again, in school, we're trained to think, oh, I just finished my exam and I'm done. No,
Yeah.
no, no. You're never done. You can always get better. There's always another level. you can always get that little bit better. And I think that's the fun part. Like, let's say we already, like, let's say everybody was at the best level that they ever could be.
Yeah.
We'd be so bored.
Yeah.
Have you seen there's a Pixar film with this little robot, and there's all the people are like sliding around in
Oh
these
yeah. And
cars.
that
What's it called again?
Wally.
Wally.
Hmm.
It's like we give humans all the sort of luxuries and relaxation stuff, and they're just zombies. They're really bored, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would hate a world where I would hate a world like that, because life is about growth, and in life we're either growing or dying. And we have seen, everybody knows people that are dying in their job or in their relationship or something they're doing. Doesn't mean they're dying quickly. It means that you can see in people's eyes if they're growing or if they're dying.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important to keep growing, keep like sharpening the saw, and keep getting that little bit better at entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Nice. So kind of jumping to the business part. So
Yes.
I as you know, I'm starting a blog and I'm calling it Efficiency WOD.
Okay.
One of the fun things that I wanted to do was almost do a video series, like, and see what I can accomplish in 30 days.
Yeah.
Like, what can I create in 30 days?
Yeah.
And so for someone that's kind of just starting out, like, what advice do you have for someone starting to get into this kind of
Okay.
business?
I think that's really cool. I think it's there's a big market for productivity, and I'm honored to be on this show and add value to your users. One thing that I would encourage all entrepreneurs that are starting out is do not do business ventures that you're not willing to spend 5 years doing. Because typically what I have found speaking to people and in my own experience is that it's that amount of time it takes to actually build a reasonably solid business.
Right.
And it's also the magic number from Malcolm Gladwell, which is 10,000 hours, is 5 years. It equals 5 years.
Mhm.
And everything in our life is compounding. So basically, after this call, I'm going to the gym. And yeah, it's only 1 hour. It's a 1 hour exercise. But if I didn't do it today, it wouldn't really matter for tomorrow.
Yeah.
But seeing as I exercise 3 to 4 times a week in 2 to 5 years, the difference is massive.
Yeah.
The difference is incredibly big. And it's the same when people start companies. They say, oh, I'm going to try this for a year. I'm going to try this for a year. No. You're going to do it for 5 years. That's your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And because everything's compounding. So 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, this is compound interest. And if you want that kind of success that you've seen other people have, I believe you have to commit to a type of business, a type of industry for 5 years. It doesn't mean you can't change your philosophy and your outcome and stuff like that, but stick to an industry. I think that's really, really important. And I think we're trained again by marketing to think like, oh, it's short term, we can make stuff happen in a short amount of time. Yeah. And also like companies like Snapchat. I mean, and let's talk about Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg was an entrepreneur from like the age of 16, right? So it wasn't his first company. So when he started another company, I mean, he was still making lots of mistakes, but he'd sort of been in the game for a while.
Right.
So bear that in mind. Like a lot of the overnight successes that you hear about are like they've been
10 years in the making.
They've been 10 years in the making. They've had like mentors around them. They've read like hundreds of books. And there are no overnight successes. And I think that's one of the biggest lies in the industry. But people need to sell magazines. They need to sell news, and in media, we're always doing like the old versus new, right? So there's always like a new technology, a new way of doing stuff, a new way of whatever. And I also find that kind of bullshit, because there's nothing new under the sun. Business is the same as it's always been for the past 5,000-10,000 years. You buy something at one price, you sell it at another, you make the difference. How you do that is through innovation, blah, blah, blah. Yes, the technologies have changed. The principles of business are the same. So Another thing that entrepreneurs need to think about is like getting the basics right. Like learn to walk before you run. And I think that's also important. Like get the basics right.
Yeah. Okay.
Like
Now,
who is your target audience? How can you reach them? Who has them? It's like just the basics.
right. Now about the target audience and how to reach them. For I know that was one thing that has always kind of interested me, or it always seems like a black box until you open it and start doing it. But what kind of stuff do you do for customer acquisition?
So what I do in regards to customers and figuring out who to target and how to reach them is well, there's different techniques. I think one is when you start out, you need to figure out who your ideal customer is, and you can create a drawing, a vision board for that customer. So for my book, Never Work Again, the ideal customer is 35 to 55, disgruntled in their job, is running a business, but it isn't really taking off. People that want more freedom in their life, more money, and it's also people that are interested in personal development. They see that other people are getting different results, and they want similar results. Interested in technology, mainly living in the Western world. And other books they've bought is like the 80/20 principle, the 4-hour work week, the $100 startup, and then books like that. So basically what I wanted to write was a 4-hour work week too.
Yeah.
And I try to answer questions that weren't in the 4-hour work weeks. For instance, what type of businesses can you start that work ideally in that business model?
Right.
And I also try to answer like, what is true freedom? Because it's not about not working. It's about doing what you love. I mean, that's what Tim Ferriss did. He went out and he learned all these skills. He learned these languages, and he saw the world. And he kind of did what he loved. And so I try to like write an additional answers to questions that weren't really answered for me in that book.
Yeah.
So I already knew, because again I was modeling, right? I was like, okay, this is a great book. It sold a lot of copies. I feel there's an unanswered question, so there's a market for another book that has a different perspective. So by studying his customers, I already knew that they're between 35, 55, 85% is male, based
Yeah.
based in the Western Europe or Australia. But of course, people come from all over the world. And so I basically studied his target audience, and I just launched a book similar to that. Uh, and the way to get customers is I've been doing a lot of webinars. I've been doing like joint venture webinars
Hmm.
to people that have the demographic that I'm interested in.
Right. Right.
So that's how I've been building my list. And I've just modeled basically. I
Yeah.
practice what I preach, and I don't think there's any shame in modeling. Some people call it copying, but the fact of the matter again is that there's nothing new under the sun. There's just iterations of the same.
Right.
So, for instance, an iPhone isn't a very innovative product. A Samsung is an innovative product.
Uh-huh.
And what Apple do is that they understand their target audience, and they make it very beautiful. They make it simple to use, easy to use, and beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's more or less the same kind of product. And who's copying who? I mean, they're both copying each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's how we learn. It's how we can produce better stuff. And the world overall becomes better when people model other people. Like when somebody successful trains somebody else to become successful, there's now two people that can add value to the world.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in business, there's a lot of like, oh, this is mine, this is mine, this is mine. Like piss off, it's
Yeah.
mine.
Yeah.
More money, more recognition. And I think that's kind of sad. Maybe I'm an idealist here, but I think life is really about we, and it's really about adding as much value to the world as you can and contributing.
Right.
And that's where the real joy is, the genuine joy. We don't want to be the richest person in the graveyard and be really, really unhappy. So one example is which I mentioned in the book also, is Sam Walton, who died regretting his
Hmm.
life.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm sure Steve Jobs, when he was on his deathbed, looking at his family, he regretted not spending more time with them as well.
Yeah.
So there's something about understanding what we should have our focus on in life, and live a life that is true to you, and live a life where you live your freedom.
Hmm.
And I believe by doing that, you're serving other people as well.
Right.
And a lot of people won't like it, like your family and your friends. They can't see what you want. Yeah, they can't see what you see. So for them, it's hard when you start making those shifts and changes, and doing the sort of freedom stuff that you need to do.
Yeah.
But they will all come around. And in my circle of friends, people they used to be like quite negative, and not quite negative, but like skeptical, I would say.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
skeptical to stuff that I wanted to do, and now they just don't say anything because they know I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And now it's like, now it is the accepted fact that like Erlend does weird shit, and
Yeah.
I'm okay. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do meditate and do yoga as well, and I do martial arts. So it's like, yeah, I do all these things, and I write books, and but after a while, that becomes your brand. It just takes them longer than you to
Yeah.
stand and realize, because they need to see proof now rather than later. So
Right. Right. Cool. And just before we kind of sign off, I'm gonna shift from high level to like really, really like tactical.
yes,
Um, this morning I spent an hour and a half with my virtual assistant. I'm
okay,
trying to shift my email to her.
yeah, yeah,
And so I understand, at the beginning there's going to be this huge learning process between the two of us, and how do you kind of make it work. But how did you, like, what's your workflow for outsourcing your email? Because I find like I still am holding on to the idea like I need to dictate every single
yeah.
reply that goes out, and I'm like, this is going to take forever.
Well, one thing you can do is create an FAQ,
Hmm.
so you can have an auto reply with your FAQ.
Okay.
Um, so basically, 80% of all questions are the same, like
Yeah.
80, 90%. So that's one thing. Um, it is sort of a training thing in the beginning. You need to find out what kind of questions people are asking most of the time.
Hmm.
And you need to allow him or her to also make some mistakes. It's part of training is actually not failing basically, and learning from those failures, and
Yeah.
allowing your staff and your trainees to fail, and then help them get better is an important skill as an entrepreneur. I give them access to my email, and they're allowed to reply to the emails that they can,
Yeah.
and it works in different ways. Like, I get this daily email updates. I got about like 8 emails, and I only check 2 of them. But I get an email at the end of the day with like a summary of other stuff that I need to reply to.
Right. Right.
Uh, but it's pretty smooth. What we do is we make a script for answers.
Yeah.
Right. So what is the price of this? It's this, including this and this and this. Right. So creating scripts for them being able to respond on behalf of you is one way of doing it.
Right. And then it
And
sounds like you have a private email, like not your main email, but a
yeah,
secondary one that's like only maybe 2 or 3 people have.
yes, I
Yeah.
do. I do
Okay.
have that, absolutely. And yeah, and I don't have my. One thing is allowing things to fail. So basically, I don't. I haven't got my like my busy email. I don't have that on my iPhone.
Hmm.
So it's very difficult for me to check it, because I
Yeah.
don't want to be checking my email all the time. I want to like batch do emails like 1 hour a day. Is
Yeah.
also a good thing to do. And one powerful thing is the daily update. Okay, so it's in the book somewhere. If you search daily update in the PDF, I'm sure you'll
Hmm.
find it. But basically, it's like what I did today, challenges I encountered, questions I have for you. And questions I have for you will then be all the questions regarding replying to those emails.
Okay.
So in effect, you could actually do one email a day to her, and she replies.
Right. Right.
And it is like, in the beginning, it takes longer to do it this way. But again, compound interest, the better she is, the better
Yeah,
he
that's
or
right.
she is, the less time you have to spend.
Right. Awesome.
But I think there's always this like training relationship with your assistant and your managers as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for taking the time out of your day.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, and I'm definitely gonna have to ask you about your travels because that's been a goal of mine for the longest
Okay.
time is to work and travel at the same time. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, thanks again, and yeah, have a great rest of the day, Rowan.
Thank you. Thank you very much.